Taliban 2.0 is a different kettle of fish from Taliban 1.0, which Pakistan has come to realize very grimly. This Afghanistan is not going to be Pakistan's vassal state or a client state. Pakistan thought it would attain strategic depth, a policy that it has honed over decades, going back actually to the earliest period of the Pakistan Republic from the 1950s onwards. But clearly it has gone south for them. Question of strategic depth has collapsed, and relations are so frayed that they're barely on talking terms now. And cross-border incursions will continue, and for now it would appear Pakistan believes in riding it out, come what may the consequences.
Very much for speaking with ANI. I'll begin by asking you about the latest that we have on Pakistan airstrikes in Kabul that has killed around 400 people. How serious is this escalation in Pakistan-Afghanistan relations?
It is serious and has been ongoing for quite a while, considering that Pakistan categorically told Beijing last week that there is no point in discussing anything with Kabul since the latter refuses to even meet our basic threshold of demands. That is, of course, sanctuaries for the TTP and the rest of it, as we do know what the usual list of grievances is. But the fact is that Beijing is obviously in the wings, looking on, not entirely as a mute spectator tells you how things are, because it is clearly interested and has a stake in both states. Not just economically, but also geostrategically. But this was Pakistan's position, so that it is very serious. So Pakistan is obviously engaged on its AFPAC front, but then that could have repercussions for Pakistan in the short to medium term run, given what is happening on its western front. Granted, it is not necessarily involved in the Iran-Israel-US war, but Pakistan's chink in the armor is its southwest flank of Balochistan, which is a restive province and has seen a low-level insurgency being played out for the last few decades. And Balochistan, its namesake region, also falls across the co-terminus border into the Iranian Islamic Republic, where it is also, like Pakistan, note, Iran's largest province in landmass. Balochistan is 43% of Pakistan currently, and it also is in Iran known as Sistan, the Balochistan province, and it's the largest province in Iran too, where too Sunnis are disgruntled with the regime in Tehran. But of course, the interface there is different with the Shia aspect, and sectarianism is brought into sharp relief because Sunnis are officially discriminated in Iran, no denying that. But there also they're impoverished, and there too, just like Pakistan's Balochistan, Sistan of Balochistan is the most underdeveloped province on all social indicators. So that is a question of dissidence on Iran's periphery, which has a bearing on Pakistan and how that would play out, because we've had discussions in recent times of the Kurds joining the political fray. Tehran, as we know, has been discussed recently. The Kurds, of course, are also a Sunni ethno-linguistic minority, and an Iranian minority, just like the Balochis. So Pakistan, whether it may like to see it or not, could be pulled into the fray of that. How it pans out is another question altogether.
Gurjin, what does this incident reveal about the current state of relations between Pakistan and Taliban-led Afghan government? And also, could this strike mark the beginning of a wider pattern of cross-border military actions between the two countries? What are your views on that as well?
Taliban 2.0 is a different kettle of fish from Taliban 1.0, which Pakistan has come to realize very grimly. In that, well, the long and the short of it is, this Afghanistan is not going to be Pakistan's vassal state or a client state. Pakistan thought it would attain strategic depth, a policy that it has honed over decades, going back actually to the earliest period of the Pakistan Republic from the 1950s onwards. But clearly it has gone south for them. The entire question of strategic depth has collapsed, and relations are so frayed that they're barely on talking terms now. And cross-border incursions will continue, and for now it would appear Pakistan believes in riding it out, come what may the consequences. And of course, it does know it is militarily superior to Afghanistan and economically too. And they would want to weaken the Afghans as much as they possibly could, as something of a, civil war, not civil war, but a war of attrition of some sorts. But at some point, it would have to be negotiated. And then, of course, there is every reason China would come in, because obviously negotiations and mediation with the Qataris and the Saudis has failed. And they are far too busy with their own problems, as you can imagine just now, and will be even after the Iran crisis concludes at some point. They will be busy with their own security priorities. And clearly, Afghanistan is not going to be top of their list.
Mm-hmm. Talking about the West Asia conflict now, the confrontation between US, Israel, and Iran has entered its third week. How do you assess the current trajectory of this conflict now? We have seen several statements from Trump, from Israel, and from Iran as well.
Well, first things first, after a fortnight, some estimates have come in, and we should look at those. For example, this much can be stated with certitude, that the military campaign, Roaring Lion and Epic Fury, is a stunning military success on any and every count and every yardstick. Consider the facts. On the first day of the conflict, February 28th, Saturday, Iran launched 350 ballistic missiles and 800 drones. By 14th March, it has come down to approximately 25 missiles and about 75 drones. Its arsenal is depleting. It is suffering seriously and heavily with losses. The Iranian airspace is completely ruled by by Israel and the US. So much so that B-1 non-stealth bombers can casually fly in and out without being attacked or part of caught on Iranian radar. Iranian naval assets are being liquidated progressively. Minecrafts, sweepers, destroyers, midget submarines, and the like. So yes, the Strait of Hormuz is closed. And that is Iran's trump card, which it's playing to the hilt. But the point is that Iran's security apparatus has been degraded massively over the fortnight. And you must remember also that there have been some casualties, civilian casualties on the Iranian side, but also on the GCC side, the other side of the Gulf. But they have been very limited over a fortnight. They have not been in the hundreds and thousands as one would have thought or would expect in densely urban areas, which means technology has advanced to such a level that warfare can be conducted with such precision. So that also needs to be factored in. And you must remember that in the first 12 days of Operation Epic Fury, the US has expended $16.5 billion, which is a hefty sum, no doubt, but set against the fact that it's only 0.057% of the US GDP tells you the US is able to shore this over.
Mr. Brazil, last question. President Trump has urged several countries to send warships to help secure the Strait of Hormuz. What does this tell us about Washington's current strategy? Because, many U.S. allies appear reluctant to join such a coalition. Does this indicate growing international hesitation about Washington's approach towards Iran?
Yes, and also it must be foregrounded against the fact that the transatlantic alliance has seen stresses in recent times because of the Ukraine conflict. Since the Europeans, whose priority is Ukraine, have felt Mr. Trump has not entirely been on board with them and enthusiastic about bolstering them in the face of Putin and Russia. So that partly explains why the Europeans are reticent and to join in this. Having said that, you must also realize, and this is not discussed so often, is that only 3% of Europe's fuels, oil and gas supplies comes through the Strait of Hormuz. 38% of China's supplies come through the Strait of Hormuz, 11% of Japan, and 15% of India, and about 12% of South Korea. So it's these countries that are primarily affected. Europe and North America is not that affected by the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. So yes, there is anxiety in other parts of the world, but not necessarily with Europe. So that also has to be factored into their decision making. Mind you, having said that, Greek, Italian, and French navies are already patrolling the Red Sea and have been there for a while to protect shipping against Houthi interceptors. But the Houthis have been considerably degraded since last year's war, as you do know, and they haven't yet come to Tehran's assistance, unlike Hezbollah, as we do know. So that also has to be seen. Having said that, the Royal Navy is taking a defensive position, and Prime Minister Starmer mentioned from London that the Royal Navy and the Royal Air Force is taking a defensive posture. For example, incoming Sukhoi, Iranian Sukhoi Su-25 bombers attempting to bomb Qatar, they were intercepted and destroyed by the RAF. Or drones and other missiles by the Royal Navy and by the RAF before they reach Bahrain, UAE, or Kuwait, or Qatar, for example. So, in one sense, the UK is involved, but purely in a defensive capacity, not an offensive capacity.